Hello, we are back with ForResting the Soul with Christy, and I'm sitting here with my dad, Robert Peterson, and we are excited to get back in the groove of things. We had a little bit more of a break between episodes. This time around, you've had some things going on. We've had some cold weather here in Missouri. Oh my goodness, I think it got down to like -8 or 10 or
Yeah,
something, and
yeah, that,
your pipes froze,
yeah,
and you had some things to deal with.
yeah.
So we took a little took.
Alternator on a car going
Oh
out.
yeah, alternator on the car. That's what it was. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so Dad's been juggling some stuff, and so in the spirit of that, we took a little break from recording last week, but we are excited to be back. Last episode, we got really deep into Dad's story of when he kind of hit rock bottom
Yep,
and was dealing with attempted suicide, and through that process, the beautiful part about going through really dark shit is we can turn that shit into compost and grow really beautiful things out of it.
sure enough.
And so, Dad is going to share with us today kind of a continuation of his story of the awakening. So, for those of you who have not joined us before, and this is your first episode, we are basically helping Dad write a book. He is this is chapter 7, called The Awakening, and it is part of his book that is titled This Is Not Who I Am by Robert Peterson. And this is just a really efficient way for us to help him tell his story of his life. So we are going to get right into the story of how he kind of turned that dark episode into something really beautiful, and it really helped him begin to wake up and find the fifth dimensional world.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
Okay. So, as far as awakening and self discovery, like after your awakening, I know there were some first shifts that you noticed in how you saw yourself, how you saw your life, and the world around you, right? I mean, what did you notice first off? You get out of the rehab, or the, I guess it was a rehab, you're in the
Yeah,
hospital,
yeah,
you're doing all of the things.
yep.
What do you start to notice about yourself, your life?
I started to notice that I'm just a little speck of water on this planet. But I also started to understand that even though I'm insignificant and just a speck of water, I'm still part of this planet and I'm still part of God. Um, the first thing that I noticed and I saw in my life was all the pain and sorrow that I had in my life dissipated. Now, why did that happen? Well, the book is titled Journey from 3D to 5D, and whenever I started into the spiritual awakening, I started realizing that this is just a glove that I'm wearing, so to speak, and who I really am is inside of my brain, and my body just carries around my brain. And I started seeing things differently in that everything has life. Everything has life. And when you get down to the quantum physics level of it, you find that everything in life is transforming from a solid to energy, solid to energy, solid to energy. And if the whole world transpires like that, then why shouldn't we?
That's beautifully put. That's just it. Energy is neither destroyed or created. It just changes form.
Just changes form.
Right. So did that change how you saw your life? In the world and how you interacted with it?
Yeah, what I started doing is I started seeing the world in a 3D realm, and my mind was generally in the 5D realm, where I started seeing why things were happening. I always thought that I was just a ball that the bat was always hitting.
Like you're constantly in reactive mode, like just responding and reacting to your environment instead of actually having an impact and changing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And thank you for pointing out. I missed that in the title.
That's okay.
The book title is This Is Not Who I Am, Journey from 3D to 5D. So thank you for correcting me on that.
That's all right.
But yeah, we have the power with our thoughts, which are energy, to make change in the world, make change in our lives, take control.
Make change in our bodies. Our brain releases chemicals, and our body remembers.
Yes.
And whenever you can forget that because you realize that you are not three-dimensional, you are spirit and energy, that means you can change whatever you want. You can become whatever you want.
Yes. Well, and that's
exciting.
It is very exciting. And that's also one of, when you said become, like, we are human beings. And so one of my most favorite, concepts is we aren't human doings. We're human beings. And so often we get caught up in the doing, trying to make things happen but we literally can just be and utilize our mind and our thoughts through meditation to create.
Exactly.
Yeah. Powerful stuff. So, as you're having this realization, how did that impact with your substance recovery and clarity? Because you had just, you were fresh out of, what was it? Burl? Were you at Burl?
Marion Center.
Yeah. And having this, big revelation about your gabapentin and being able to come off opioids. So then you're getting even more clear on things. How did your relationship with substances change after this experience?
My relationship with substances changed completely. I realized I was a mind with a body and not a body with a mind. And I was feeding my body, constantly feeding my body instead of feeding my mind. And once I started feeding my mind, I started realizing that my body's not going to last as long as my mind if I don't start taking care of it. And the substances that I was inducing into my body, alcohol and opioids and sleeping pills and muscle relaxers and this, that, and the other, it was all screwing up my physical body and have an effect on my mental attitude and mental awareness. And whenever I got a clarity of the spirit realm, I didn't want to jack with that stuff no more. Because it kept me from going where I wanted to go with my mind.
Clouds you. It's cloudy.
Clouded.
Cloudy. And it's not love.
Yes.
We're not loving ourselves.
That's exactly right.
We're numbing to escape, Did your perspective on pain management evolve as you became more aware too?
Well, that's the thing. That's the ironic thing about it. I started getting excited about getting my body healthy. And in the process, I started exercising with bands. When I started exercising with bands, I started tightening my core muscles up, and my back started decreasing in pain even more. So it's funny, whenever you love yourself, yourself loves you.
You loves you back, right?
Loves you back.
You know, that is one of the things that seems so counterintuitive. And when I work with my clients on this stuff, it's like, and also in my own journey with personal training, I mean, Eric Lawler, my trainer several years ago, he taught me so much about getting those internal core muscles, the deep internal, like the transverse abdominis and the lower abdominals and all those really critical foundational muscles around your spine.
Yeah.
When you start strengthening those guys, it's kind of, you know, our back muscles are complaining because the guys on the front aren't doing their job, right? They're like, hey, help here, you know? And so whenever you balance it out structurally, and you give the back muscles the support by the front muscles that they need, then they tend to shut up, you know? It's a beautiful concept.
It is.
And I love
who thought of it.
I know, right? Well, I mean, and that's the thing about, like, when you love your body, it loves you back. That's such a beautiful way to put that, Dad. I mean, it's so true. So you mentioned gaining a deeper understanding of God. How did your perception of spirituality shift during this time?
That was the biggest shift I had. I always I never really understood what spirituality was.
Right.
I was going to churches, and every now and then you'd get what would be a warm spirit from somebody, but you never really identified it. And you go to these churches, and I'm not knocking churches to the point that I'm telling anybody not to go.
Right.
It's your own decision. It's just, it wasn't for me. I seen the religion, the same thing every time, and I never did really see the Spirit of God. And then whenever I started seeking spirituality, I started finding out that there's thousands of spirits out there. There's a spirit of attitude, there's a spirit of anger, there's a spirit of lying, there's all kinds of spirits out there. Mm-hmm. And I never understood that that's what the spirits were. And once I started understanding that, and which I couldn't have got there without going through the dark side that I went through. I was in such a dark spot in my life that I couldn't see the light until I was made to, mm-hmm. which was comforting after it was over with. It was over with.
Afterward, right. Isn't that the thing? 20/20 vision, hindsight, being able to look back and have that reflection of, oh, okay, now I understand why there had to be that pain in order to teach me. You know, the pain teacher, right?
Pain teacher, that's right.
Yeah, so as you became more aware of how all of that, the pain teacher affecting body, mind, and soul, and how it all works together, what realizations would you say stood out the most?
That people can be whatever they want to be. Mm. That's what my realization stood out. You know, we've got to have a vision, something way out there, way out there. And that vision requires goals to get to that vision. And I could never see a vision because I never really understood how God helped me. And once I understood, and it happened to be through Joe Dispenza's book on how to break the habit of being yourself, And he goes in and explains how you can actually make things happen, good or bad.
Yeah.
That's something that you got to hear, good or bad.
Yep.
Because if you have negative energy and you are going down a negative road, you're going to have negative consequences in life. But if you keep looking for the light, you'll see the light.
I like the phrase, you'll always find what you're looking for. I've had friends and acquaintances and clients through my life who will always see what's wrong.
Yeah.
That's the first thing they see. And I used to be that way. And I still can sometimes. And we all have the capacity to we're all one. We're all reflections of one another, and, I know I get caught in that trap sometimes of looking at what's not right. But whenever you're looking for what's right, you'll always find it.
Yep.
And that was one of my biggest takeaways from Joe Dispenza's book as well, is the how-to. And it's the emotion. It's the emotion that you feel associated with what you are trying to attract, because emotion is energy in motion.
Exactly.
And so yeah, that's it's about being a conscious creator of your world instead of just allowing life to just happen to you.
Yeah.
It happens for you whenever you allow it.
I like to compare it to, you take a pinball machine and that ball just bounces all over the place. It just goes wherever it wants to go, But you've got some control with the paddles. Mm-hmm. You got some control. But whenever you're bouncing around inside the pinball machine, you have no control.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's true. And I've heard you use an analogy before also that, if you are throwing darts, wasn't it? Tell me, like, the dart analogy. How are you going to know?
Yeah. Blindfold yourself.
That's it.
Blindfold yourself. Take a dart and hit the dartboard.
Yeah. You got to be able to see where you want to go.
You got to be able to see where you're going.
Yeah.
Sure enough.
That's a great analogy and a great visual for that concept. So you've got this renewed vision, or not renewed, but a vision finally for yourself. You've got a better understanding of spirit and all spirits, I should say. And you're starting to exercise, and your body's starting to wake up in a lot of ways that it hasn't ever waken up to before, physically in the 3D realm in addition to the 5D realm. So how did your renewed focus on movement and exercise with your 3D body lead to discovery of some of the things that maybe needed to be repaired?
Well, yeah, that's pretty interesting how that turned out. In one of the earlier episodes, we talked about motorcycle wreck, and they had to split me open because I was bleeding inside. Well, whenever they sewed me back, they left a little spot there which caused a hernia. Well, that was back in the early 80s. Well, I didn't want to have another surgery.
And this is 2024 then.
Yeah, this
was last year.
This is last year.
Yeah, so 80s to 2024, so 40 years.
For 40 years.
Okay.
I tightened that spot in my belly to keep that hernia from sticking out. And tightening that spot in my belly caused my shoulders to go forward and caused me to have, let's just say, not as toned of muscles as I should have. Mm-hmm. Well, whenever I started exercising and losing a bunch of weight, I lost over 60 pounds. And I started exercising with rubber bands. Well, just like when I was 6 years old and I was in a competition with my uncle on doing sit-ups. I was never told the proper way. And so whenever I was exercising with the rubber bands, instead of breathing in whenever I'm not pulling on them, and then exhaling when I pull on the bands, I was going the opposite direction. And so whenever I would take a breath of air and pull on the bands, it pushed everything in my belly down towards my lingual. They call it a lingual. It's called a lingual hernia. And it was bad. Oh, it was bad. It was real bad.
So let's talk. All right, listeners, it might get a little graphic, and that's what this is about. It's about getting real and raw. Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? And as a massage therapist that deals with human bodies all the time, like, I find it fascinating how our body compensates.
Yeah. I could push my insides up and hold them there. But then as soon as I went to walking or something like that, my intestinal tract was trying to come out of my stomach. Ugh. And it got pretty gruesome. But we couldn't fix that one without fixing the other one from 40 years ago. And so he actually, because the doctor knew what I was doing with the bands. So whenever he fixed the first hernia, he actually took the muscle and sewed the muscle to my pubic bone so that it wouldn't be pulled loose again. And that even hurts still yet.
Really?
Yeah. And that was months ago. Well, a year ago.
Yeah.
That was a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we went in and we did the second hernia surgery and got that all taken care of. And then 5 weeks after that, 5 weeks after the second hernia, I started getting the congestion.
Yeah, and that's still a little curious as to how all that started to happen. I mean, I'm just, I watched some of this process, right? And got to witness this, and you're feeling good. Okay, it's time to make the repairs in the physical body so that you can start to really align your 3D body with your 5D mind, right?
Right.
And you're excited, you got the momentum going, and then you have these hernia surgeries, which were painful, and it was a hard process, and you're still staying positive, and then we have some pretty major complications that start to begin, and you're out of nowhere that you hadn't had before.
Right.
Did this change how you viewed your body's, like your physical body's resilience and limitations? Did this start to affect any of that at that point?
It started making me realize that I am 68.
Age is a factor. Yeah. These spacesuits that we wear are, they do have an expiration date.
So I started realizing that I had to take it easy, at least until my body gets used to what my mind has in store for it. Mm-hmm. It's funny, you lose track of your 3D body whenever you're thinking in the 5D realm all the time. You expect it to keep up when it doesn't.
Right. What steps did you take? I mean, to start to repair then? I mean, so tell me about the congestion, because this is the part actually that is a little fuzzy for me. So what did you start to notice first?
I started having a hard time breathing. This is just 5 weeks after the surgery.
The second surgery.
The second surgery, which I questioned whether or not we needed to have 2 surgeries back to back. I tried to get him to fix both of them at the same time, but he wouldn't do it.
Yeah, because you had to go underneath anesthesia. Yeah, that's hard on the body.
Yeah. And so anyway, 5 weeks later, I was having a hard time breathing, and it was pretty difficult. And so I called the doctor, went in, talked to the doctor about it, actually seen a nurse practitioner. And she says, oh, well, she has probably just some congestion. She says, let's see where it goes. Well, weeks went by, still there. I call her up, said, hey, it's still here. So she gives me an antibiotic. 3 weeks later, antibiotic didn't do any good. She says, well, let's x-ray your lungs, make sure you don't have pneumonia. She x-rays my lungs, and she says, no, you don't have pneumonia, but I always look at my test results in case something's missing. Well, it said on the x-ray report that I had an enlarged heart. Well, I went to the Mayo Clinic website, and that says that there's a possibility of having water in your pericardia and you can be having congestive heart failure. Well, I brought that to her attention, and she gave me a couple of Lasix, which is a water pill to get the water out of the pericardia sac that encases the heart. And I could breathe a little bit better because some of the water disappeared. But then, after 9 weeks of this, I ended up at 3 o'clock in the morning waking up and literally couldn't breathe, and chose to go to the emergency room. And they started giving me all kinds of Lasix and stuff, and I actually peed 2 gallons of water that my body was holding. And that was the beginning of congestive heart failure. And I didn't realize congestive heart failure is way worse than a heart attack.
Yeah, we've learned a lot, haven't we?
Yeah, we've learned a lot. Down at the cardiac center, almost everybody down there has had open heart surgery. And boy, they're just up and running again. Well, they've got almost all their heart back. I'm still building my heart efficiency back up. It was down to 15%. And that's where all of these complications started coming in.
Yeah. And it's as you're talking and as I'm remembering and starting to kind of reflect as well, it's there's such a theme in your life with medical care, things being missed, things and getting back to what you and I talked about just moments ago about Joe Dispenza and putting that antenna out. And I just wonder what energy frequency you have resonated with for so many years of your life that has attracted experiences and situations that have perpetuated this, I'm just going to say it, malpractice.
Yeah.
Because it is malpractice.
Yeah.
You went 9 weeks.
9 weeks.
9 weeks dealing with severe congestive heart failure before anything was done about it. And really, could have been referred to a cardiologist immediately, could have really started the education process so that you knew exactly what you were dealing with.
Yep.
But that wasn't the case. And our medical community is so taxed and so, and I witnessed this up at Barnes, I mean, the nurses and doctors are just, I mean, our health as a society is fucked. Not gonna sugarcoat it, I mean, there's so much chronic disease, and congestive heart failure is nothing to mess around with. No. It is so much different than a full-blown heart attack, like you said, because it's about the balance of the fluids in your body.
Yep.
And if you can't get the right kind of balance internally, in order to get the fluid out of your body, you're just filling up.
Yep.
And your heart's not able to pump the way it needs to. And so how, like, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. And I kind of know some of this stuff, so help me. So we go through this process of you realizing you've got congestive heart failure. You're not able, I'm at this point, I think, is around the time I leave the country.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of, you and I are talking about writing the book and trying to do all this, and then you're having these complications. And I'm going to be honest, like, Dad, you don't ever, like, you hide a pretty good game whenever you're not really doing very well. and so you weren't kind of leading on to me how bad things really were before I'm getting ready to leave the damn country for almost 3 weeks. And I sense it across the globe that something doesn't feel right.
Yep.
And we're messaging as much as we can. Can't really even have a conversation, though, because you can't breathe.
Yep.
And so where is your mind at in all of this whenever, I mean, I know you were meditating a lot. I know that we did. I'm starting to get a little bit emotional just because it was such a scary time for me over there, knowing that you weren't being totally honest with me because you didn't want to freak me out. Yeah. But we're very much energetically attached, and so I could tell. And so, of course, we did a synced, a meditation together that we coordinated, trying to just really focus on visualizing your body healing. But tell me what was really going on in your mind through that process, please, because I don't think we've ever talked about that.
What was going on in my mind at that process is I didn't want you to worry. And I was trying to get control of my body and get control of the water.
What were you doing to do that, though?
What was I doing to do that? I was cutting down all salt. Anything that had salt in it, I eliminated. I tried to walk as much as I could. At the time, Bear was alive, and Bear and I was going for walks.
Bear was his dog, just so you know.
Bear was my dog, yeah.
Yep.
And he kept me moving. Mm-hmm. But I kept going backwards, and I could see I was going backwards, and really wasn't sure why. Well, I was actually. My cardiologist took me off of spirulactone.
Because they finally sent you to a cardiologist.
Yeah, they finally sent me to a cardiologist whenever I went into the emergency room.
Yeah.
And he put me on what's called spirulactone. And spirulactone, it's a diuretic like Lasix, but it doesn't take the potassium out of your system. And so between the two of them, it was getting control of my water. But the spirulactone was having an effect on my kidneys. And they quit giving me the spirulactone. Whenever they quit giving me the spirulactone, that's about the time that you went overseas. and they kept saying whenever I started holding more water and I was having a hard time breathing, I would call them and I'd say, hey, I'm having a hard time breathing. They'd say, just double your Lasix. And I mean, I wasn't really talking to anybody that had any knowledge.
No, you weren't.
And this happened 4 times. 4 times this happened. And the 5th time, they said, you just go ahead and go to the emergency room if you need to. I said, okay. Well, I had a friend over, and as soon as he left, I was getting ready to go to the emergency room, and they called me back. They said, go ahead and go to the emergency room if you need to, but if you can wait until Monday.
And what day was this?
This was Friday.
So wait 2 more days.
2 more days. And went to electrophysiologist, and because I had an LBBB, left brachial branch blockage.
That you did or did not know about?
That I knew about. However, when I was told about it, I was adamant about asking them what that does. Is that going to cause any problems? They said, no, it's just electrical signal. Well, whenever they said it was just electrical signal, I thought it was electrical signal that the EKG was taken and finding out if the heart was okay and so on and so forth. Well, what it was the LBBB was the left side of my heart wasn't pumping.
And hadn't been pumping for how long?
Over 10 years. And my right side of my heart was pumping, the right side and the left side. Well, your right side of your heart, what it does is takes your blood and goes through your lungs and reoxygenates your blood vessels, and then it pumps over into the left side of your heart. When it goes over into the left side of your left side of your heart distributes that oxygenated blood throughout your body. So if what's going on there is, since the heart isn't as efficient, whenever you walk very far or whatever, you get out of breath because your oxygen in your body is decreased. Well, whenever that 5th time, whenever they said just go ahead and take some Lasix, then they ended up sending me over to a electrophysiologist. Well, electrophysiologist is what I should have had 10 years prior. God. So that my whole heart would beat.
Right.
So now they put a pacemaker with a defibrillator in it.
They scheduled that because you did wait until Monday. You made it through the weekend.
I made it through the weekend. And in 3 days, he felt it was so important, the electrophysiologist, that in 3 days they put a...
Immediately scheduled the surgery on Halloween. Immediately. Yeah.
And the electrophysiologist, whenever he put it in, he nicked my heart. And I was telling my cardiologist, I was in the hospital at this time, and I was telling my cardiologist my pericardial sac was filling up. And he was arguing with me, saying that it's not filling up and so on and so forth. And we went to arguing, and finally he said, well, we can't do anything else here. We need to send you to Barnes.
Yeah, but let's back up on that. So you have pacemaker defibrillator installed on Halloween.
Yeah.
Because that was like the only thing they could at this point do for you, because the Lasix and other meds weren't working. So you have a pacemaker and defibrillator installed, and then 6 days later is when you reach out to me and need to go to ER. Yep. And that's when you ended up in ER, which was on, I think it was the 6th of November. And you're just laying, and I have the conversation recorded with your cardiologist whenever I was asking questions about your pericardial sac. And, it's, and at that point he had no idea that the damage had been done.
Yeah.
And you're just laying there here in this local hospital, which for the sake of this podcast, we're not going to mention the hospital name. You're not getting any better.
Not being able to breathe.
Not being able to breathe. You're still not able to breathe.
They already took 1.5 liters of liquid off of my right lung.
So they did the thoracentesis, pulled the liquid off your right lung, in that cavity, and then just waiting and hoping that the meds are going to do something, and they never were doing anything.
Right.
And so then that was on a Thursday, I believe, or Wednesday is when you went into the ER again.
Yeah.
And then Friday was when I needed to leave town and go to St. Louis.
Yep.
Because I had some classes scheduled up there at my friend's yoga studio, a cacao ceremony and a fascia release class. And so I had to leave. And then I guess it was Saturday when you told me, you sounded rough. Like, I almost left Friday and drove back home and canceled the whole weekend because I could feel it. I knew there was something. You were fighting for your life. Like, yeah. You're a miracle. You are a walking miracle. Again, all the stories that, you have, all of this shit that you have walked through, all of these physical body incidents, it's almost like you're phasing out all of the shit that you did to yourself and all of the unlove that you gave your body for all the years. And it was almost like it was cycling out.
Yep.
Is that what it feels like to you?
Shitting it out.
Shitting it out. Yeah. In this case, pissing it out or having it drained out.
Yep.
In order to try to figure out what's going on. So as you're getting ready, I'm sitting in a class on Sunday. I decided to stick it out after you and I spoke. Plus, I knew that's what you would want me to do. You wouldn't want me to bail on everything and just to come and stare at you in the hospital.
Yep.
And I'm getting ready to start the class on Sunday, and as you are literally landing on a helicopter pad at Barnes Jewish Hospital in St. Louis, and, I know we were going to get into congestive heart failure details and stuff in the next episode, but maybe we just dig into it now. You went that was on the 10th of November, you went another 4 days, still not knowing that your heart had been punctured when they did the pacemaker and defibrillator installation, and you had 1 liter of blood in that
pericardial sac.
Yes.
Yep. And 1.5 liters of water on my lung.
After it was already drained the first time.
Yes.
Yes. So, those moments at Barnes with you in that hospital room, watching you drown.
Yeah.
That's what I was watching.
It was uncomfortable.
I tried to just breathe as shallow as I could for as long as I could the way you were, and I almost had a panic attack.
Yeah.
I don't know how the fuck you did it, to be honest. You have a pain tolerance like nobody I've ever met.
Well, I knew I was going to recuperate.
So let's talk about that, because as all of this stuff is happening, You know, I mean, kind of getting back to our list of where we were kind of wanting to go with this. You've described, you know, this transformation of frequencies. You've described this like new way of thinking, this awakening that you've had. And then now here we are again. We're facing some heavy, hard, dark stuff. And I mean, how did this feel internally to you during that time, and others around you? Like,
I've never spoke it, but I felt the whole time that I was being tested. Do you really believe what you say you believe? Felt like I was being tested. And yeah, I really do believe what I say I believe. And so I think that's part of what helped pull my 3D body out of the conundrum that it was in because of a 5D mental attitude.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't let my spirit go. And all of those pages that you made up really made a difference. It really did. Whenever I'd see I'm Robert, I hold my intent. It made a big difference. Because, and I still look at them today in the morning. It makes a big difference because you can go anywhere you want to go if you just know.
And that's, sorry. You know, that's one of the things, like, what we surround our environment.
Yep.
Let's talk about that, like, because environment is a big deal. And this is going to be kind of a tough question. This is going to be kind of, we're going to get into some, you know, some raw stuff. Getting back to kind of what we said earlier about you're always going to find what you're looking for. So if you're always looking for what's wrong, you're always going to see what's wrong. And, you know, I did get a little bit protective of your energy. I was protective of your energy whenever I took you to the ER initially. I didn't want to leave you. I was very cautious about who was influencing your space, and that awareness and that beautiful 5D reality. And because, you know, whenever you're trained and conditioned to think a certain way and then you shift, it's easy to kind of slide back into an old way of thinking sometimes. And so a lot of people, you know, who have had like big revelations where maybe they quit drinking or this, that, or the other, they have to change even their associations, you know, because they can't be tempted to drink, or they can't be tempted in this case to think shit's going to go bad and I'm not going to make it. Like, we can be realists and we can look at what's actually happening, but take that and move it and pivot and create and use it to create, right?
Right.
And so
we are creators.
And so, like, as you've been awakening and growing and shifting and changing, how did you notice your relationships changing, you know, especially your marriage?
Relationship changes. I have a challenge because people don't understand me because I'm coming from a different realm. And I'm not associated like you. You have a lot of friends and clients that come in and you all talk and you got to be upbeat. Not that you're not.
Hey, I have my moments when I'm super dark, so.
But
you're right. I have to kind of keep that up.
Yeah. But whenever you're around a lot of people that aren't that way, it has a tendency to pull you down. Whenever they say, "Oh, that's terrible," it ain't terrible. It's just the way that it is.
No judgment. Don't judge it. Just have the awareness of what it is.
Yeah,
Right.
and I'm not 100% like you, but I try and always speak positive. And whenever you're attached to somebody and that person speaks negative and you're speaking positive, you have just nullified the energy level, and you're not creating and you're not destroying, you're stagnant. And I look at life now way different than I used to. I you know I, what can I become? Not what I was. What can I become? And I was always thinking about what I am instead of now. Where I'm at right now is just temporary. Where I'm wanting to go, my vision is where I'm going. And then I set up the goals to get to my vision, but it's always I know I'm going to do it. I know it's going to happen. And whenever you get around people that don't think that way, you get them saying, "Yeah, it'd be nice if that does happen." Well, are we creators or are we not? Yeah. And so yeah, it's created a little bit of a problem there. And well, I'll just leave it right there.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been a gradual process, and I would say you've done a great job of doing your best to protect your energy. And, sometimes being able to live in isolation, to be able to protect your energy bubble is a really beautiful thing. I mean, I've caught myself reclusing a lot lately, with the way the world feels right now. It's just easier for me to protect my energy space. Is that kind of what you feel like you're doing right now?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Did this, all of these new awarenesses, is it helping you navigate things differently than before right now? Any challenges? Because where are you right now health-wise? Let's kind of update. So fast forward, we get, what time is it? We're getting a little bit close, so we can go through next episode. I think it'll still leave time for the Barnes that story. We'll save that part for next episode. But fast forward past Barnes to where you are today. Do you feel like, you're looking at the medications to try to still balance everything out? How are you feeling today?
Yeah, they've started taking me off some of the medication. I had tachycardia. My heart was racing. No matter what I did, my heart just raced. Just sitting still, my heart would be 100, 105. And so they had to give me some medication for that, but now it's back down to normal. So I don't have to take that anymore. And so slowly but surely I'm getting off all this stuff that I'm taking.
And you're exercising regularly again.
And exercising regularly.
And you've gotten the clearance on using your bands again. So you can start strengthening your muscles, your fascia, working with your fascia. Starting all over again. Just
don't quit.
And that's just it. have definitely been tested, and you allowed yourself to overcome this incident as well. What would you say to anybody else who is dealing with congestive heart failure, who is dealing with feeling like they are being jacked around by the medical community, or people who are maybe struggling to kind of wake up? I mean, what would you, if you had somebody sitting in front of you right now, maybe it's one of our listeners who is kind of, maybe they're not suicidal, maybe that was last episode, but maybe they're dealing with any of these issues. What would you say to them?
I would say get by yourself and have nothing on your calendar for a day or two, and just start meditating. And whenever I say meditate, there's 15,000 ways to meditate. And what you're wanting to do is, first of all, you want to get rid of the thoughts that come into your head that you don't want. And the way that you do that is you look at a black screen or a white screen, and every time a thought comes into your head, you start over. And whenever you get to where you can do that for 15, 20 minutes and no thoughts come into your head, you've now controlled what's called parasites, the things that are eating away at your brain, eating mental energy. Once you regain that mental energy, it's easier to focus that mental energy into the 5D realm and start looking at your pineal gland, your third eye, and start meditating and pull something that you want to think about in and think about it. But what you want to do is you want to realize that you are a mind with a body, not a body with a mind. And your mind can control your body. It can. It may not seem like it, but it can. And you just got to learn how to do it.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
I think that, so many people, and I have so many clients that talk about how they have such a hard time meditating. And, I've started adding a guided visualization, to some of my clients whenever they lay on the table as soon as we get started, just to kind of help them be present. And I feel like as a society, and I know this, it's not that I just feel it, I see it, I witness it, and I have over the last 2 decades in my practice, that most people have lost touch with actually being aware of how their body feels.
Yeah.
And so, while looking at a white or black screen and trying to just make the thoughts go away, that might work for you, but I already can hear and feel listeners that would hear that and be like, what the hell does that mean? How do I do that? I can't just make my thoughts stop. They just keep coming. And I can't, because I hear this from my clients, and so I would like to add to that be present in your body. If you can't kind of get rid of, quote, the thoughts, that or let them, kind of roll away easily, what you can do is think about what's happening and get yourself present in your body and think about how your body feels. So maybe focusing on your heartbeat, feeling your heart beating in your chest, focusing on your breath, taking deep breaths and do box breathing, where you're taking, breathing into the count of 4 or 7 or 8, whatever is your magic number, and then holding it for the same number, and then exhaling to the same count and holding it out for the same count, because when you are focusing on that stuff, then you can't, the monkey mind, it doesn't, it's not as monkey mind whenever you're actually focusing on your breathing. And
You're
then
diverting your mind.
Yeah, and then once you're doing that for a while, then you can start to find yourself, especially, in this place of presence and awareness, and then that's where God is. So the solutions will come. So if you're dealing with, maybe feeling like you're jacked around by the medical community, or, you're struggling with how your body's feeling, and you're dealing with something called congestive heart failure that you've never dealt with before, and you have no idea what's going on. We have this innate wisdom within us. And if we are quiet enough to listen and connect with that spirit, then the answers will come. It's hard to explain, but you will have, is this your kind of experience too?
Yep.
Yeah. So the answers will be presented, and I like to keep a journal nearby so you can write things down or do some free writing or something. If you just sit down and start writing, sometimes I just will say, hey, God, what's up? And just, it sounds silly, but once you just start allowing free flow writing from your mind to your hand, consciousness will speak through that. And a lot of times I'll ask a question on page 1 and it'll be answered on page 3. And so, those are some tools I think that could be useful for people who are just really struggling with trying to figure out how to navigate and maybe feeling a little hopeless. So.
Yep.
Anything else you want to add for today, Dad, to the story?
Not at this point.
No? All right. Well, we are looking at right at about an hour right now, so that was a good little time frame there. Nice time to wrap up.
Okay.
So, all right, you guys, thanks for listening today. We are going to wrap up before our next episode, where we'll dig a little bit deeper into Dad's experience at Barnes Jewish Hospital the night that we kind of figured out what was actually going on and what that looked like from a 5D and a 3D perspective. If you guys have any questions or thoughts or anything that you would like to share with us, I do encourage you to reach out and let me know. If you're liking the stories that you're hearing on this podcast, let me know that too. If we're driving you crazy, tell me that too. Dark and light, it all meshes together, and it's all a beautiful way to learn. And
absolutely.
Yeah. So until next time, we just wish you well, and I'm going to post some resources in the show notes for Joe Dispenza's book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. He's got some really beautiful direction on meditation and decrystallizing that pineal gland. And then also I'm going to share some resources regarding Kundalini Yoga. It's also a very good practice for helping to get connected with self. So until next time, you guys, I hope you have a fantastic day wherever you are, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye now.